So, today we're going on a bit of a journey. And no, not to some faraway place, but into the uncharted wilderness of the self. In a time like ours where all the old maps for finding meaning have basically been torn to shreds, we're going to explore how to become our own architect, how to build our own meaning from the ground up.
And to kind of get our bearings, let's start with an allegory, a story. Imagine a traveler. Every day she walks in the bright sun, but she's not enjoying it. Why? Because she's terrified of her own shadow. She spends all her energy running from it, exhausting herself just trying to stay one step ahead of her own reflection. This traveler, this story, well, it's the key to understanding the challenge that really all of us face.
You see, we're living in a world of crumbling temples. The great collective myths, the big stories that once told us who we were and where we were going, they've collapsed, and that's left a huge spiritual vacuum. So what rushes in to fill that void? Well, a lot of the time it's the false comfort of collectivist ideologies. You know, the ones that ask you to just sacrifice your individual self for the so-called safety of the group. But there is another path. To get by in this world, we all wear what the sources call a golden mask. Think about it. It's that face of perfect order, of Apollonian clarity. It's the structured, capable, I've got it all together version of ourselves that we show everyone else. But what's underneath it? Well, often it's a gaping abyss of our own chaos, our suffering, and our shame.
And it always happens, right? Sooner or later, the music stops. A crisis hits. A failure, a heartbreak, a moment of profound loss. And that golden mask, it starts to crack. And in that sudden deafening silence, something we spent our entire lives running from starts to creep out from the shadows.
So what is it that emerges? It's what the sources call the archetype of the ugliest man. Now hold on. This isn't some external monster. Not at all. It's the personification of everything we've disowned in ourselves. Our raw desires, our pain, our deepest, ugliest insecurities. It is the part of us we have simply refused to look at.
And that moment of revelation, wow. It places you at a crossroads, staring directly into your own abyss. So what do? Do you recoil in horror and just fall apart? Or do you find the courage to turn around and face the dragon of your own inner chaos? Believe me, this choice, it defines everything that comes next.
Because that single choice leads to two fundamentally different outcomes, two archetypes. On one side, you have the cautionary tale of what's called the pale criminal, and on the other, you have the heroic ideal, the architect of meaning.
Let's look at this. The pale criminal is described as a bridge that broke. He was crushed by the weight of his own actions. Because he couldn't face them, couldn't integrate them, he ends up becoming a pale, hollow spectator to his own life. But the architect? The architect does the complete opposite. They don't run from their shadow, they marry it. They aren't crushed by their deeds, they become the light that consumes those deeds, transforming them into part of a heroic story.
So what was the criminal's fatal flaw? Well, it was this. He had the courage to say no to society's rules, to break them. But he lacked the much deeper courage to say a holy yea to himself, to fully own the scarlet fruit of his own nature. He acted on raw impulse, but then he tried to patch it over with what the sources call poor reason, just a flimsy logical excuse. And it's that internal conflict, that war with himself, that ultimately broke him.
Okay, so if the mind's poor reason can lead us so far astray, what's the secret weapon for the heroic path? The sources point to something really profound. Something we almost always overlook, the deep instinctual wisdom of the body.
Now this flips everything we normally think on its head. The body isn't just a vehicle for the mind. No, the body is the great reason, a mighty ruler. Our conscious thought, our little reason, is just its tool, a plaything. What this really means is that the deepest truths, they're felt, not just thought.
And that's exactly why we have to be so careful of the despisers of the body. You know, those who see our flesh as some kind of dirty cage we need to escape from. That view is a total dead end. It cuts you off from what's called the God who speaks within the blood. True integration means honoring the body as the very meaning of the earth, as the source of your spirit and your true strength.
So, with that in mind, let's circle back to our traveler's journey. How do we actually do this? How do we forge this wholeness? Well, it's not a battle to destroy the shadow. It's more like a mystical marriage, where you unite your light and your dark into one complete being.
The process really follows 5 clear steps. First up is recognition. You just stop running and you turn to face the thing you've been fleeing. Then comes acceptance. You stop apologizing for having a shadow, for being imperfect. You get that it's an essential part of your silhouette. Next is exploration. You start tracing its origins. What past wounds feed this thing? Then, you find the courage for expression. You start to tell its story. And finally, you get to integration, where you learn that this darkness, it isn't just a source of fear. It is dormant fuel for your greatest passions.
And that right there, that is the alchemical process at the very heart of this story. You take the structured, golden self you show the world, and you consciously unite it with the chaotic, messy, Dionysian self you've kept hidden away. And in that union, something incredible happens. Your pain stops being a liability and it becomes an anchor, a source of friction that allows for true grace.
When this integration is finally achieved, you go through one last major transformation. You stop being just a breaker of tablets, someone who only reacts against old values. You become a master of the silence that's left behind, someone who is capable of writing their own law, of authoring their own life.
The ultimate achievement on this path, the peak of the mountain, has a name, Amor Fati. It's a Latin phrase that means love of one's fate. It's the ability to look back at your entire life, the triumphs, the tragedies, the light, the dark, and say a joyful, powerful yes to all of it. To see every single moment, good and bad, as absolutely necessary for the person you have forged yourself to be.
And this is the great reward of the whole journey, isn't it? By having the guts to go down into your own abyss, by integrating your own chaos, you discover something breathtakingly beautiful. You find wild lilies blooming right there in the mud. You learn that the greatest meaning is often found not by avoiding the darkness, but by transforming it.
And so we end where we began, with a choice, your choice. The music has stopped, your golden mask is cracking. And in the silence that follows, the real question isn't what the world tells you to be, it's who will you choose to become, the pale criminal or the architect.